So nice to meet you, Mr. Mustafa Adil. You're the head of Participative Finance at Thomson Reuters.
That's right.
And we have a few questions to ask you. The first is going to be, what are your expectations about the growth of the participating finance in Morocco?
Thank you very much. For Thomson Reuters, Morocco is one of the most exciting markets in the participative finance space. I mean, we've been watching this market since 2013 when the first announcement was made regarding the rollout of the finance. We were one of the first entities to do extensive primary research to see what the consumer demand was for that. And we found that there is overwhelming support and interest in adopting participative finance. And I think that over the last few years, the way the government has rolled out the regulations and the way that they have licensed a number of financial institutions and a number of participative finance windows is going to ensure that there is a broad depth in the market, and the products being offered and the coverage being offered through utilization of the distribution channels is going to be very, very effective in ensuring that the needs of the local market are being addressed. So we are expecting there to be very fast growth, particularly in the first couple of years. We've seen similar rollouts in markets like Oman, which followed similar standard, and we expect that within the next few years, participative finance will play a very significant role, taking up somewhere between 5 to 10% of the overall banking sector size. So we're quite bullish and we're quite excited to see how the market develops.
Nice, thank you. What is unique about the model being adopted in Morocco?
So the model in Morocco is very, very interesting, and we've not really seen it anywhere else. And there's a couple of particular areas where that interest comes in. One of them is the way that the Sharia board has been structured in Morocco. So Morocco has a centralized Sharia board that is completely independent from the financial institutions and completely independent from the central bank as well. It reports directly into the separate authority, and its primary purpose is to make sure that the products that are being offered are in compliance with Sharia principles. Now, the issue with the industry globally has been that there has been accusations that Sharia scholars are not fully independent of financial institutions that are trying to push products through. Because they're on the payroll of these entities, they are in somehow influence, and that causes a lack of authenticity in terms of the reputation of the market. What we will see in Morocco is a truly independent Sharia board that is not linked to the business side in any way, that will independently validate and verify the products that belong. So I think you're going to have a lot more consumer confidence in the market. You're going to have a lot more consumer confidence in the products that are being offered, and I think it's going to be an excellent model. My expectation is that more and more markets are going to adopt this model of having the centralized Sharia board. Other markets are already talking about it, but no one has really taken it to the step that Morocco has, and I'm sure that in the future we will see other markets also copying this example to add that additional credibility into their domestic markets.
Thank you. And what role do you see financial providers play in this field?
I think as financial information providers or other providers, other stakeholders, we have a very proactive role to play. I mean, the industry is literally starting from scratch. All these financial institutions, although they've partnered with some participative finance entities in other countries, the model is very different, and nobody really knows how that model is going to play out. So obviously, you have the regulators playing a role and you have the financial institutions playing a role, but entities like Thomson Reuters and other entities that play a facilitative role in the industry will also have a very important role. And I think that the industry is going to look to us to provide the information that is required, to provide the analysis and the data that is required for strategic decision making, and also to help provide much of the connectivity that is missing. I mean, whenever a new industry starts, rather than everyone reinventing the wheel from scratch, you want to have people learning from each other's experience. You want to have knowledge transfer taking place, because that will help the growth significantly rather than in isolated silos. So I think that Thomson Reuters or other financial providers like us will have a key role in these two areas, in disseminating research that will be critical for decision making in the industry, and for promoting connectivity among stakeholders to ensure that the growth and development is unhindered.
Thank you. The Ministry of Finance is expected to issue the first Sukuk in 2017. How do you expect the Sukuk landscape to develop in the next few years?
So Sukuk is a very, very interesting instrument, and Morocco is a very interesting market for investors. I mean, Thomson Reuters has been conducting a series of surveys with Sukuk issuers and investors, and we have found consistently over the last few years that Morocco is always highlighted as a key market for investors. I think that the transition is going to be slow, and I think that makes sense at this point. I think what you will see is the Ministry of Finance issuing the first Sukuk this year. I believe that subsequent to that, you may see a few financial institutions issuing Sukuk, and you may see some of the larger corporates potentially issuing the Sukuks. I think once that takes place, you will have depth in the market. We expect the central bank to also issue short-term liquidity instruments in the structure of Sukuk to help ease the liquidity constraints for the financial institutions that will have excess capital in the beginning. But I think that over the next few years, you're going to see a lot of depth in the market, and you're going to see a very interesting mix of both domestic capital and international capital. Investors in other markets who see Morocco as an ideal investment destination, and the Sukuk structure as an ideal structure for them to invest in the projects in the country in a safe and structured manner. So we're very optimistic that Sukuk is going to play a vital role, and globally we know that there is a gap between supply and demand of Sukuk. We know that there is excess demand in the market, and we know that Morocco has been highlighted by investors in other markets as being a core market that they're following. So my expectation is in the next 2 to 3 years, Morocco will be a major jurisdiction when it comes to Sukuk space globally.